Netflix has dropped a brand new limited series and we've got to talk about it. Yo, my little filmer dudes, my name is Montero and thank you for joining me on my journey to watch every TV show ever created. Not really, but we are going to get close. Based on true events, Toxic Town tells the story of dozens of Corby mothers who were inadvertently poisoned due to negligence in handling toxic waste caused by a steelworks company. Because of this negligence, there was a spike in abnormal births that caused long-term damage to dozens of women until Susan McIntyre, one of Corby's mothers, makes it her mission to find retribution for everyone who had been victimized by this company. First things first, I am both a sucker for a good drama series that actually happened, but also I'm always skeptical of anything that says based on a true story, because that means they've taken creative liberties, and to what extent we don't fully know unless you do your own research. But then in having creative liberties or having too much creative liberties, it kind of leads it to become not the original story anymore. However, in the case for Toxic Town, they are upfront about what they changed, certain characters that have been added to the story, and at the very end for the finale, during the little written parts that gives you an update of the story, something that Apple Cider Vinegar did not bother to do. In that little thing, they were upfront about who they changed and why they changed. And frankly, the reasoning makes complete sense. For example, there's one dude who is technically comprised of multiple CEOs, so it's just easier to understand, it's less complex, it's budget friendly to make it all just one person. So it's stuff like that. It's not that they changed something for the sake of dramatization, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. They don't do any of it. And yes, I did do my research after watching the show. And you know, I used to say that a good sign of a good, based on a true story is if you have the strong urge to go and research more about what you just saw. However, that is no longer the case because of Apple Cider Vinegar, another true crime drama that debuted on Netflix earlier this year, and it's absolute garbage. I did review it, so you can watch my review. But compared to this, it's no good. On its own, it's no good, but compared to this, even worse. Apple Cider Vinegar was so bad, I had to do the research to figure out if any of this was real or how any of it went. It's just so confusing. It's not a great time. I want to see a true crime docuseries on Mel Gibson, but we're not talking about that. Where Apple Cider Vinegar's goal wasn't to inform, but to make a person seem like an awful person, and yes, she absolutely is. The goal wasn't to inform, and you can honestly feel that while watching Apple Cider Vinegar, but Toxic Town's intention are to inform, are to educate, are to tell the story of people who were wronged, who were silenced, but then won in the end. That's the difference between Apple Cider Vinegar and Toxic Town. Toxic Town has heart behind it, has true selfless intentions behind the making of the show. And as you should know by now, I take good, deep looks into the writing for every show or movie that I watch. In my opinion, the writing is the most important piece in any media project. So I would say that Toxic Town's writing is pretty tightly done. The show does a pretty good job at giving you exactly what you need to know for the purposes of the story. If you want to know more, then it's up to you to go research that. But this show gives you exactly what you need to comprehend what happened. It doesn't dawdle, it doesn't have any filler, it doesn't linger on plots and characters that honestly doesn't make sense to have. It doesn't do any of that. And to me, that's actually phenomenal. With this being a 4-episode series, you'd think there wouldn't be enough time or space to properly tell the story, but yet that's not the case. Jack Thorne, the creator of Toxic Town, focuses on telling a character-driven narrative, but he does so by using the reactions of these mothers to the events happening around them rather than focusing on the events themselves. And in doing that, he essentially eliminates any need for backstory or childhood trauma, all of those good bits that we're kind of used to seeing. This show doesn't need any of it. It's not part of the story, therefore it's not going to be in the story. And again, I like it because then the show feels just, again, tightly packaged. I'm telling you, the show gets right into the meat and potatoes, and it sticks with the meat and potatoes. In fact, this is a meat and potatoes only kind of meal. I feel as though some would say that the show feels a little bit rushed at times, but that's only because of the time jumps. The time jumps kind of just happen, but the characters kind of always bring you up to speed as to how much time has passed. So it's not really that much of a gripe to me, but the entire story is basically told within 13 to 16 years roughly. Plus a little bit more, but there's only 4 episodes. But don't fret, my little filmer dudes. These episodes are long, some longer than others, but the watch time averages around 51 minutes per episode. That's a lot going on per episode, and a lot does go on per episode. However, I should temper your expectations. Some are going to say that this show is a little bit of a slow burn, or at least the show skims on details on the characters, like I mentioned earlier. But I fully disagree. Again, I do not think that every single detail is necessary on every single character, especially because we know how things are kind of gonna go. This is based on a true story after all. There's going to be a little bit of a happy ending. And sometimes, even in life, things are explained by they just are, or it just is. A few of those are sprinkled throughout the show, allowing for the pacing of the story to continue, and honestly, that is totally allowed by me. Otherwise, you would be looking at a longer episode series, and trust me, the complaint would then be the show kind of feels like it drags sometimes. There's honestly no winning here, but I see what they did and I like it. And I also wouldn't necessarily say that this is a slow burn, but rather a steady simmer. It's cooking. It's just cooking steadily so that nothing boils over or burns. I've been looking at baking certificates lately, can you tell? I know slow burns can be hit or miss for some people. I know some slow burns for me are just atrocious, but this one worked. Again, it could be the fact that the show stuck to the point of the story, which was the women and their reactions. It didn't add anything unnecessary and only had what serviced the story. What a novel concept! Now, I only have a few minor gripes with the show, and I don't know if it's the directing or the acting. For example, there are many moments where I, as the director, would have changed a few things, or at least directed the actors a little differently. A lot of moments that really could have just driven it home with the emotion, but then I thought, would that then be over dramatizing, and is that why these scenes are not, frankly, over dramatized? Because as a creator, you have to beg the question, am I sacrificing the integrity of the story for something flashy and something that might praise me and not the story? And if the answer is yes, then you kind of have to let it go, because the story ultimately matters. So honestly, even though I would have liked a few scenes a bit polished up, it's not that big of a deal for me. Because once again, that's not the point. They're not trying to have some amazing visuals or some outstanding performance. Again, the point isn't them, it's the story itself. A story that absolutely needs to be told, needs to be watched. Shelby Ann, remember that name. Shelby Ann. She's the point of the show. Now, it's baffling to me that this clip isn't part of the finale, or at least part of the show in some kind of way. It could be treated as bonus content. Just stick it at the end like an added episode 5 if you wish to watch, but this little piece of marketing was phenomenal. For me, this was the finale of the show. So to be totally honest, my rating absolutely includes this bonus piece of content. Actually, I think it's down here or up there. Not only does this 15-minute clip elevate the show, it almost feels cathartic, not just for you, but for the women who are involved. In this clip, you're watching the original mothers speak more about their experiences and go into a little bit more deeper details, or at least you get to see their personal reactions to the stories that just transpired, and they're talking about them with their respective actors. It was like a mini Wicked press tour, but for Toxic Town. But seeing each mother finally receive their closure because of this show was something truly special. So honestly, if you have extra 15 minutes on your hand by the time you end the show, I highly recommend hopping over to YouTube and watch the true story behind Toxic Town, the cast meet the real mums. I cannot stress how important this little 15-minute clip is for this entire story. Trust me, you will not regret it. In the end, Toxic Town for me is a little bit of a unique one. A 4-episode limited drama, yet we're so used to having a minimum of 6 episodes or 8 episodes for a series. However, because of the writing and not wanting to over dramatize or overcomplicate the story, it completely worked for me. Again, again, the point of the show is to tell a story, and not just any story, one that had to be told. The point wasn't the stunning visuals, though I did like a lot of the framing and a lot of the shots. They set up so much for the finale, and it didn't set out to have outstanding performances or outstanding written dialogue pieces for award purposes. It simply was conveying the message of the terrible events that transpired in this very real town of Corby, Scotland. And if you can't realize this and you are only looking at it superficially, then you are part of the problem. And I said it and I stand by it. You are part of the problem. Why? Because you are doing the exact same thing that the company is doing, ignoring the stories, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fact that it happened. And if you are looking at this superficially and not looking for the story, then again, you are part of the problem. Genuinely, if it weren't for that bonus clip, I think we'd be looking at a 9.2 or 9.3. However, because of that bonus clip, it was so touching. And the seeming fact that most people are looking at this superficially, I give Toxic Town a 9.4 out of 10. I really want to give it 9.5 out of pettiness, but I think we're gonna stick at a 9.4 out of 10. Let me know your comments let me know your thoughts in the comments below. My sushi media links are in the description below. Have you seen Toxic Town? Do you want to see Toxic Town? Again, I highly recommend it, and I will see you next time. You've just been Montified.